Today's AskReddit post. People who have been a nude model for art classes. What is the most awkward or interesting moment that has happened during a class? Oh boy, this is gonna be a good one. Let's get started. This is a little thing, but I still remember it 20 plus years later. I volunteered to be a figure model my freshman year of college for the art majors. I was super self-conscious about my body and thought it would be a good way to push myself. I was sitting in a pose while they sketched, and I heard one student whisper to another, "Look at the light falling on her ankle. Isn't it beautiful?" I am older and more self-confident these days, but that still ranks as one of the best compliments I've ever received. Oh, I love this. This kinda counts. I was hired to play classical guitar as a figure model for an art class. I was paid I think $35 and I got to keep all the drawings. One girl handed me hers and it was me playing guitar without pants, and she gave me a huge dong that curled around my feet. I kept it for years, then it was ruined in a move. Yeah, but what happened to the painting? It was ruined in a move. A dick move. I moved my dick so hard it ripped the piece in twain with its massive girth. Walked out of the closet in my birthday suit and immediately recognized 3 people in the class. Wasn't expecting that, but after the first 10 seconds or so they saw all there was to see and I got over any awkwardness. Super hard to pose for long periods though, and I have a ton of respect for those who do it regularly. Did they make you wait in a closet so you could make a grand entrance? Not a nude model, but I had to attend an art class that used them a lot. A friend of mine ended up having to sit in the front, and at one point, the model was at just the right angle that all she could see was her legs and crotch. She was lying down on a bench. When it came time to share our work, my friend was incredibly embarrassed because several of her pieces were just of the model's private parts. I call this one Whisker Biscuit number 7, and this one I call Dap. I was a student in a figure drawing class where our nude male model got an erection that rose so slowly that it was nearly halfway erect before I noticed it happening. It eventually very slowly got fully erect and then just as slowly flaccid. This was of course during our long pose, so he didn't even get a chance to reposition himself. I imagine others noticed, but I can't say for sure, and I personally felt some second-hand awkwardness. I'm going to add this potentially unnecessary detail, but during the moment it was fully erect I did notice one drop of precum drip. At that point I felt bad for the guy who apparently was fighting something within himself to try to turn his brain off or something to bring it back down. I'm imagining an angry art student having to erase the flaccid dick they just drew. Why is his penis blurry? It isn't. I've drawn it at all the stages of erection, because I saw it at all those stages. Oh. Okay. Carry on. It moved too fast. The model was just helicoptering it around screaming, "This is art." Let me just say, if you ever get the opportunity for this job, take it. It pays real well and all you gotta do is hang out naked. I loved it, but it was awkward that the art studio I modeled in was always so cold. Looking at the students around me wearing winter jackets while I'm naked just seemed unfair. I had a space heater, but it wasn't ideal. My art class was so cold that not only did the models have a space heater, but they were allowed to wear socks and mittens. EROTIC. Not me. By God, you don't want that. I know a woman that did nude modeling in her college years. Fast forward 10 or so years. Now she sells houses. She was doing a walkthrough for some clients to sell a house. Here's the whatever room. Here's the other whatever room. Walks into one room and sees the nude paintings the owner had done through the years. Sees the one of her. Slight panic takes over, but trudges through without incident. Don't know if she sold the house to that particular client, but hell, that was definitely awkward for her. Oh my god, that sounds scary to see yourself in a nude painting from someone you don't know. At least she nude modeled. Could you imagine finding a painting of yourself nude in someone else's house if you never modeled? Like those public schools kids that have to draw their cousins from memory. I went to art school and dated one of the girls that came in to model a lot. but she was just one of maybe a dozen regular models we had. I only ended up sketching her in a class once. Nobody in the class knew we were seeing each other, so it never really got weird. It was actually kind of hot. That was a fun night. But the most awkward experience was when this one regular dude we had unfroze his pose, walked over to his bag and pulled out a Tupperware container of pasta salad and started eating it. It was supposed to be a 20-minute pose, and this like minute 3. The teacher asked him to get back in position, but he kept going back to the pasta salad every couple minutes, just standing there, eating, with his dick and balls hanging there. It was so weird. Pretty tame, I guess. But it's always stuck with me. Was the dude trying to get fired? I took a figure drawing class at a junior college and we had 3 models we worked with most of the time. They were great. One day this replacement came in. He only wanted to do sitting poses, and for some reason he had his manhood facing these 2 18-year-old girls every position change. He never welcomed back. I don't think so. He was there for a few more years. Must have just been having one of those days. Was probably stoned out of his gourd. Bruh, I've been here since the dawn of time. I need a snack. The biggest beating my ego ever got was nude modeling. I had a very good physique, surf club, firefighter, and I was confident of my manhood, so I gave it a shot. The class had been told to focus and exaggerate features. I got 14 drawings of me ranging from caveman to sexless to one that was just all the muscles and no face or limbs. Like a Lovecraftian horror. I was super embarrassed and apologized to the teacher for being a poor study, and she said this was the most creative she had seen some people. You did fantastic. The point of a life model isn't to be sexy, it's to be human. It's to help train the artist's eye to see shapes, shadows, and lines in the human form and understand the proportions between parts. By having an excellent physique, you likely also helped them understand muscle placement and proportions. Usually we were given anatomy books and told to practice copying and understanding the connections. Seeing a live model helps it click. Them then understand what could be exaggerated and still have an interesting and balanced piece. Most figure drawing classes aren't make this beautiful person beautiful. It's use this model to understand the human body and represent it in your art. Yup, I think what a lot of people might not understand here is, for artists doing figure sketching or painting, the nudity isn't really erotic or anything. They're really just understanding how forms and muscles are working in conjunction from a live source. I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but at a certain point it's just like, yeah, okay, drawing another naked person. Me and my friend also went to life drawing sessions. The initial surprise at seeing people naked wore off very, very quickly, and I can guarantee you that after the first 10 minutes, you're much more focused on training your observational skills and getting the anatomy right. Actually had a student in the class who was evidently new to the course country, foreign guy, who apparently saw me shiver whilst lying there naked and proceeded to stand up, take his shirt off, and walk out to offer it to me. Nice move. Don't think he completely understood the class or what I was doing, but hey, served us with some great entertainment, and he had a good laugh about it too once he realized why I wouldn't take his shirt. I love this. He doesn't know what's going on, but is like, of course they're naked. Why wouldn't they be? I should help them get warm. He's a little confused, but he's got the right spirit. Student, not a model. Mostly it was all pretty professional and great experience, but there was one dude who took off his robe, looked all the girls in the eye and got hard. The prof put a black cloth bag over his head, a la Abu Ghraib, and we kept on drawing him. He wasn't invited back, just like, took a scan of the room, looking at all the fully clothed girls, and bobbing, or like, was it more subtle? The mental image is killing me. I got to know how exactly this went down. It didn't go down. It went up. My boyfriend's ex turned out to be one of the models. That was a bit awkward. How did the sketch turn out? More importantly, how did the boyfriend like it? Username checks out. I once misheard the length of a pose and ended up holding my arms over my head for 15 minutes. That hurt. Ouch. My first 20-minute pose, I leaned back on my elbows. Mistake. I was the student in this case, but one time the model fell asleep during a pose and no one had the nerve to wake him up. Sitting naked in a room full of strangers is horrifying for most people, but this guy decides to take a nap? The balls on this guy. I remember there was one class where I was modeling, and one student was asking the teacher for help drawing the cellulite. He then did a little demonstration on the board to show the other students. I wasn't very overweight at the time, maybe 140 lbs, but that was slightly humiliating. Also, there is awkwardness with menstruation. My first time modeling, I happened to be on my period. I was very self-conscious about my tampon string showing. I tried to tuck it into my vulva, but it came back out. After a while, I stopped caring and just accepted that having a period is natural and better than the alternative of cancelling on the class. Cellulite is a secondary sex characteristic. It's unusual not to have some. Freakishly unusual. I really wish we were taught about the human body. So many of my insecurities were boringly average. Damn. I never realized. Haven't modeled, but I took several life drawing classes at OSU. Most models were decent, interesting poses and such. Then there was the one we called Twitchy. He'd start off well enough, but then his frail little body would start shaking. From moment to moment his position would change. Tremors shook him to the point that we inquired about his health. Drawing him made us nervous and everything looked like a Picasso due to the changing positions. Okefenokee State University, Oregon State University, Oklahoma State University, Ohio State University. In college, I was modeling in a studio with large windows filling the wall towards the sidewalk on campus. I'm standing there, no curtains because the professor was a dingbat, and this dude walks past looking into the studio. Then he stops, backs up, and takes another appreciative look, and walked on. More recently, I was scheduled to model for an art class at a cartoon school. The professor did not tell me that his 3-year-old daughter would be there, because he didn't have childcare. I refused to model fully nude with a random 3-year-old in the room. Really ducking inappropriate for him to bring his kid and not tell me. I don't get not being nude in front of a 3-year-old. Nudity isn't sinful or dirty. It's just the human body. Esp with a toddler. I'm a parent. My best friend and his wife have this policy with their kids. It's a healthy attitude to take, I think. But I did have to ask my friend to ask his kids not to burst into the bathroom when I'm taking a leak. I mean, I get that it's all natural, but a man likes to pee in private when he can. I'm also not a fan of letting 4 to 7-year-old girls see my junk. He was cool about it, explained why they're like that, and they haven't burst in on me since. Not a model, but the most awkward experience I saw a model have was during a class when the professor would put music on to play in the background. He didn't really pay attention to what was on his playlist. So about 20 minutes into the class, the lyrics of "If you like my body and you think I'm sexy, come on baby tell me so" from Rod Stewart's "Do You Think I'm Sexy" was playing over the speakers. The lady model noped out of class in the middle of a pose, grabbing her robe and things, and just left before the professor had any chance to figure out what was happening. We just all quietly sketched in our sketchbooks for the remainder of the class after that. Can't really blame her. That probably broke her confidence instantly. I was in art college and the models we drew ranged from 18 to 70. None of them ever felt embarrassed because they realized that we don't see them as people. They are just objects for us in that moment. And if you think that kind of situation where an awkward song comes on deserves walking out on the job, you should have heard the conversations between us and the professor while we're drawing them. It would make the most confident person crumble in self-doubt, discussing things like the shapes of their breasts, vaginas, penises, amounts of fat on their body, cellulite, skin conditions, etc. I once got scolded by the professor because I made the breasts of the good-looking 19-year-old model symmetrical but they weren't, while she could hear us. Well, this woman was a bit of a prude, and notoriously so. She would put up her own curtains and makeshift entryways in front of the classroom door so no one could look into the classroom during the session. At an art school, she set up rules, like no one was allowed to leave the classroom while she was modeling just in case someone pulled the curtain open and people outside the classroom could see her in the buff. She was a pain to work with apparently. Oh, that shit wouldn't work in our school. Of course we wanted to make sure the models were as comfortable as possible, but the models had no say in how the classroom operated. We wouldn't leave the doors open, but leaving to get a cup of coffee or going to the toilet was common. The classes were 4 hours long with 15 minutes breaks after every 45 minutes, but that was mostly for the models to relax. So someone is opening the door every 15 minutes or so. If the model demanded the door remained closed while she is nude, they would have been fired. There's one guy at the place I model who always likes to come up to the model after and show you his drawings. I was told he is weird but harmless. The second time I modeled there he came up to me after, stuck his phone in my face and took a selfie with me. Kinda weird, but it got weirder. The next day I got a friend request from the guy with his profile picture set as the selfie he took. He had also tagged me in 10 unrelated posts. Creepy AF. My boyfriend, at the time, came to draw me and decided that after the halftime break that he would make a better model. Confirmed with the organizer that ran the classes and had me swapped out after intermission so his narcissistic ass could be drawn by a dozen of my regular artists. I only ever modeled there 2 more times. It was awkward after that. Damn. What a piece of shit. Did he bounce when you dropped his sorry ass? Hahaha. He broke up with me about a month later. I didn't realize how messed up he was until I was in a healthy relationship about a year later. He had a lot of mental health issues. I just hope he's on a good place now. A woman on a podcast I listened to described the last time she ever modeled for an art class. She laid out naked, and the creepiest guy in the class dragged his desk right up to her, so he was about a foot from her crotch. Then he drew a full-page drawing of just her vagina, and the teacher did nothing to stop him being a creepy, gross asshole. Some pretentious Yale kid tried that when I was modeling, but I just told him no and the teacher backed me up on it. My dad went to the Dallas Art Institute in the 80s. He said the nude models he drew were old people. Of his drawings of the backside of a naked old lady he turned sideways and entered it in a landscape painting competition. He won first place. The sagging cliffs of Gravity Falls. I, male, was modeling when another model, female, showed up. Guess she thought it was a week. The art teacher said, hey, if you wanna get naked too, I'll pay the both of you. Would make for an interesting composition. I was worried I was gonna bone up, but they seated her behind me, so I didn't really see anything until the end of the night when we were all done and could put on a robe and wander around and look at people's sketches. Where did the male part come in? Explained he's a dude into chicks. Right. One class the instructor was watching the timer and announced when the model was to move to a new pose. I guess he got distracted and the model was holding a pose for longer than expected. Instead of just being like, hey, I think it's been a while, he just threw down the pole or whatever shit he was holding, threw a robe on and stormed out. We were all like, WTF. The instructor had to go talk to him and convince him to come back. One time during a figure drawing class, the male model has some discharge come out of his dick. LOL. I bet he had just masturbated so he wouldn't get a boner, pebis. My degree is in art. We had models pose at a strict school that didn't allow nude modeling. One of our classmates who was the same age as us would wear a very tight leotard and model for us. We were obviously studying every curve of her, and though there was no nudity, it was still a bit strange because she was our peer and studying alongside us. Needless to say, one of my buddies in that class is still married to her. I'm assuming you gave them the sketch as a wedding gift. I've done it. I thought it would be no issue as I'm comfortable with nudity. The first time my left leg started shaking uncontrollably. It eventually stopped, and one girl pulled out her phone. Did not like it but didn't address. Filming devices need to stay away. I farted. There's no fart quite like a naked fart. I'm just imagining that there is a quiet room with only the sounds of pencils on paper only to be interrupted by a wild untamed fart free from any clothing restrictions. I was the art student, and we had several men and women as models. My favorite was a middle-aged woman with lots of curves. She was beautiful and just more interesting to draw. Bro, you actually watched the whole video. I'd give you a high five if I was a human. Make sure to click the like button and subscribe for more great content. See you next time.